Have you ever wondered how a universe made only of consciousness could possibly look like the world of solid objects that we seem to be walking around in? Well, tag along for this video. I'll try to explain how we actually have a very first-hand experience of how that might look. So basically, any model that tries to describe reality has to somehow account for consciousness. That's like the one thing we can't leave out. Because if we leave consciousness out of the model of reality, well, it kind of denies the one thing that we know for sure. We are experiencing this. There is consciousness. Something is registering that something is happening. So consciousness has to be in there. And the model we have of the world today, or like the predominant one in our society, is materialism or physicalism, which suggests that the world is built out of something called matter. And when that is complex enough, such as our nervous system, then consciousness arises from that. So consciousness is kind of coming out of matter. Then all of a sudden you have two different substances. You have matter and you have consciousness. And if you want to explain reality, well, you can't really leave out how they fit together. And materialism or physicalism hasn't been able to do that. So we've kind of wrapped this in what we call the hard problem of consciousness. And if you want to deep dive into that, I have a whole video on that. But that's kind of what's left. We have two things, and then we need to explain how they interact. Well, if a model has to include consciousness, and if we're going to try to explain it using using only one medium or one like fabric, that's the essence of the universe, then that has to be consciousness. Yeah, did you get that? Like, if consciousness has to be in the model, if the world or reality is made of one substance, that substance has to be consciousness. And that is precisely what non-dualism or consciousness-only model suggests. That everything and everyone is made of the same fabric, substance, underlying mush, and that's consciousness. However, since that doesn't give rise to the hard problem of consciousness, it does give rise to, I guess you could call it the hard problem of matter. How does the appearance of matter arise out of consciousness? So it's the flipped problem. Like, we cannot deny that it feels like we're walking around in a world made of solid things, things that I can touch, things that are quite different from my inner world, which is like thoughts and memories and emotions. So how does non-dualism or consciousness-only model, how does that make sense of what we experience as the external world? And the way it's usually phrased, or a way of phrasing it, is that it is made out of consciousness, or like it's an appearance of consciousness. And that can seem pretty far-fetched, as though that's something that's something we have to imagine, something we've never experienced, that's not close to anything that we can really grab. It almost sounds a bit like science fiction-y. But here's the thing. It is not. We've all experienced it several times. When we dream, that is exactly what happens. Going to sleep at night and dreaming is the way we experience consciousness as a world. So in other words, it is not foreign to us that consciousness can appear as matter. It is not a far-fetched idea. We have all experienced it. So let us walk through what that actually means. So when I fall asleep in my bed here, I'm in Sweden, Gothenburg, So if I fall asleep here in Gothenburg and I dream that I'm in a jungle somewhere, I might not even be a person anymore. Maybe I might be a tiger. So I'm a tiger walking in the jungle, and it feels to me that I have a body, a cat-like body. I have a tail, I have paws, and I'm walking around inside the jungle. I can feel the heat against my paws, the heat from the ground, or if it's moist. I can see the leaves of the trees in front of me. In that dream, I am convinced that I am a tiger. I have my inner world, and there's a jungle out there. That's my outer world. But when I wake up, all of that kind of evaporates. There is no trace of a jungle left around me. All of a sudden, I'm back to being me in my bed here in Gothenburg. There is no traces of me ever having a body that was cat-like. The jungle is not around me, so obviously everything took place within my mind, within my inner consciousness. Somehow, the consciousness that I normally experience as my inside world, my thoughts and my emotions and my memories, make a split where part of it all of a sudden becomes a tiger. And when I look out through the eyes of the tiger, I see nothing external. Everything takes place in Josephine's brain. Josephine is my name, by the way. So everything takes place in Josephine's brain. And in that brain, there's a tiger and there is a jungle. So in that sense, we know exactly what it's like when consciousness appears to be a jungle. It's not an extraordinary, odd thing. When we dream, we do that. Our minds do that. So to suggest that in real life, when I wake up as Josephine and walk around in Gothenburg, that is just taking the dream and moving it up one step, as though I am an avatar, a dream avatar, a tiger, in the dream of the universe. So the universe has split consciousness, the universal consciousness, the one consciousness that exists. It has split itself into Josephine's inner world and a world out there that appears as matter, as streets, as trams, as buses, as houses. Because we already know that consciousness is capable of doing that. It does so when we dream. Is this proof that this is how the world is? No, it's not. And I'm not claiming that. It is just suggesting that it is possible for us to imagine what it's like, that the world out there is also made of consciousness. The thing we have to let go of, though, which was quite difficult for me and for many other people as well, is that according to the way we were brought up in the West, we think that consciousness can only manifest as as thoughts and as emotions and as things in our inner life. And then we think that anything that manifests as anything else cannot be consciousness because that's not how I experience it on the inside. But that is never claimed. A thought appears within my localization. I cannot see a thought if it's happening outside of me, outside of my dream, my so-called dreamed character. But consciousness could also manifest as an experience, because that's all we know about the outer world. We only have contact with our experiences, and experiences in the sense, I mean, all of our sense perceptions, our touch, our smell, taste, vision, hearing. That is how I interact with the outer world. It's the most direct experience I can have with my surroundings. The way I know that it's a couch here is by the sensation of touch, the experience of vision. It's not so smelly, but in theory, the the sensation of smells. And those are all happening in consciousness. So I don't have any contact with anything that isn't appearing in consciousness. It's just that it's useful and it's practical to think of these, to take these sensations, these experiences, smelling a couch, touching a couch, seeing a couch, and then drawing up a map in my inner world where there is a couch, which is useful, but that doesn't make it into a solid object existing out there. All I know about it is my experiences of it. Yeah. Was there anything in this that I explained not clearly enough? Did it arise any questions in you? I might not be able to answer them. Actually, if I can't, maybe you help me explore some more. So please do ask them in the comment section. And yes, I hope to see you next time, my friend.